Thank you so much for being here. We are so excited to have Scott Decker from HP and Vinny Rinaldi from Hershey's to talk about their strategies to win using AI. All right, we'll go for it. Okay. Scott is the North America Media Strategy and Planning Lead, and Vinny is Head of Media for Hershey's. Tylin Petrie is the Head of Data Science at Chalice AI, and we're here to share how to play to win. So that's the title of the session. I want to ask you two first, just what does that mean to you, to be playing to win when it comes to marketing your brand? Vinny, I'll start with you first.
Sure. It has a lot of different meanings. It all depends on where you look at it. But if you simplify it down to one thing that we kind of look at is to grow market share. Like at the end of the day, whatever size of prize it is, our goal is to win market share from our competition. How you do that has taken on obviously a lot of different legs and a lot of things that we'll talk about. But our number one goal when we say we want to win is, I'll be very blunt, to beat Mars, Ferrero, Mondelez, like whoever our competition is that's stealing market share from us.
Yep, perfect. And Scott?
+1 to the stealing market share, for sure. And also driving innovation amongst our team and amongst our company. HP has a history of innovation, and continuing to drive that culture forward is crucial for us to win as a company.
Yep, absolutely. Now, one thing I've noticed and what inspired me, I'm Allie Manning, I co-founded Chalice. One thing that inspired us with the company is that marketers today with their platforms are kind of pigeonholed into clicks, conversions, video completion rates, as if those are the things that drive business outcomes, right? What you guys care about, market share. I've never heard a CEO go on an earnings call and talk about how the video completion rates were so high and the viewability was so great that they increased market share, right? So I think we're gonna, yeah. So thinking about that, how have you guys thought about using AI to enable you to gain market share and win your categories?
Scott, go
ahead. Sure. For me, it's about gaining an edge, right? There are so many different avenues out there at our disposal as media planners, buyers, strategists to find the right people at the right time with the right message. But finding out what works is obviously crucial. There's a lot of things that don't work. And as there are more and more technological-based solutions at our fingertips, we're trying everything, right? I saw the case study that I think some of you are about to see from Hershey's. That's what made me call you, because I saw somebody else, and I want to draft off of other people's success as well.
Nice. Thank you, Vinny, for referring.
Yeah, so, we've obviously been partners for a little bit now and figured this out. But really, when you think about the industry and you think about the marketplace, I have a category that everybody needs to eat candy. It's literally a 98% household penetration. So we jokingly say everybody with a mouth is our audience. And in theory, there's some truth to that. But we now have the ability to be a little bit smarter about that, because when we did that, we looked at all of our impression deliveries. We actually did a heat map of the United States. The entire impression load was in 5 US cities. So if you're buying everybody with a mouth, but you're only speaking to 5 cities, you're missing everyone between LA and New York pretty much. And there's a lot of people there that eat chocolate. So when we started to notice that, it was like, okay, buying for reach is smart, but is it actually driving the business? How do you really think about using a competitive advantage that we kind of talked about in using AI to get there, to grow market share, to win the category? We are category captains and leaders right now. So as long as the category grows, we all win. And we obviously play a big role in that. So how we diversify our investment was really focused on using machine learning capabilities, being fed the right data, which again, I think is probably the misnomer that we always talk about. Like if you're just gonna tell it to go by reach, where are you buying reach? How do you know where to go? We're feeding business data in versus media data. To your point, no one on an earnings call is asking about clicks. How do you use different data sets to actually create that competitive advantage and actually use technology to do it faster? So that's kind of how we viewed this and how we led into this when we started our journey with you guys.
Yeah, cool. I think too, you both mentioned competition, right? My number one focus is beating my competitors. And what we believe is that if everyone in a category is using the same AI, same platform, same models, there's no differentiation, right? So customizing the AI for a brand, because a brand is special, has special needs, special outcomes, is what will really help empower that. With that, Tylin, how do custom algorithms solve the disconnect between marketing metrics and outcomes? It sounds very grand. What really happens?
Well, if you go into all of the details, it does and is sound grand. But we can focus on the high-level impact here. One of the core advantages of working with a custom algorithm is that you cut through the noise of media KPIs and optimize directly to the business outcome that you would like to drive. Do you want to optimize to brand lift? Do you want to optimize to sales? Whatever you can think of, you can design a custom algorithm to avoid the correlations and proxies and get right to the heart of what you're trying to drive. Another key differentiator for custom algorithms is that they can be trained on your own data. What works well for pooled data or brand category level data that you'll get in a platform is not necessarily what's going to work best for your brand. You're also not putting your data into a platform that can be pooled and used for the category as a whole. And finally, custom algorithms can be fully transparent. There's no more black box or wondering why the AI made some decision. You can actually see what line of the code or what particular optimization was made, why, and then draw some conclusions about that.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And right, we get asked a lot, like, can you really be transparent? Everyone else tells us, you can't pull apart the AI. And it's the second point you mentioned that is really what enables that, is since we're modeling per customer, not pooling customer data together, you can actually be transparent about what's happening, which is really fun.
Yeah, it's absolutely core to the technology here. And I think it's very valuable for brands to see that. A lot of the insights that the model provides are pretty insightful. Maybe your targeting audience is a little different than you anticipated. Or maybe some of the optimizations are putting you on websites that are performing really well that you wouldn't have thought of. But that's all things that your team can dissect.
Nice. Okay, so we're going to get more deeply into what Scott and Vinny have done with AI, starting with Hershey's. All right, so Vinny, you rethought the playbook, right? You said, what you told me is like our MMMs weren't where we wanted them to be last season. We think we've over-targeted on data, right? Like, do we really need to target Halloween enthusiasts and chocolate lovers? Is that really an incremental audience to the people who are going to go buy candy? And so you really rethought reach. So my question is, how did you come up with the idea? Why did you chase it, and how has it gone?
So it goes back to solving a business problem first, not the media problem that we were challenged with. And for the context of some of this, when we go into a season, we knew Halloween was going to be good or not in August. It's how many pallets did we sell to every store? It's already done. The goal is, though, how much you can move off shelf before November 1st. Markdown day is the worst day in our business because it created waste. Not only does it create waste, but if you don't reach certain thresholds by every single retailer, they buy less next year. So we have this huge trickle-down effect that if we're not achieving the moving of the product off the shelf in a manner before November 1st, we're going to actually have a year-long impact to our business that we're going to have to chase and catch up to and find ways. So when we put this into place, it goes back to the impression overload that I talked about too. When you saw those two things come together, it's like, okay, I would much rather put impressions in Topeka, Kansas versus New York because they're not moving any product. And if we don't move product at Walmart, we're going to have a really down lever the next year. And that, to us, is where the business solution came to play. And then I brought it all the way back through. Well, what does the media solve as part of that solution? So much so that we only did it with one retailer at the time. It was manual to get you the data, which I think we're fixing, but at the time was very manual. We brought you the data sets literally on a weekly basis where we knew by zip code, which is basically every store, where we were underperforming that national average. We then took media impressions every single day of those weeks and made sure those markets mattered most. Not only so, when this impact we made was actually 150 basis points to share, which is 1.5% growth for that retailer. That retailer last Halloween was the only retailer that beat sell-through. And it isn't all because of just media, but we were able to correlate the 1.5% growth on sell-through directly to media, and they went from an 83 to an 84.5. And our goal was 84. So like, we were able to bring all these things together to actually prove the value through match market testing, through the work that Tylin talked about. And on its face, it sounds like it's geo-targeting, and it's not. It's all the reasons you brought up shortly ago was like how you bring almost 4 algorithms into one. Understanding the forecasted impressions by market, understanding where our product is by market, understanding the sales by market. All these things have to come into play, which is why you create an allocation tool. And then the benefit of all is we took 3 platforms that don't speak together, Meta, YouTube, and Trade Desk, and built the layer above it to make sure that we're allocating all of our budgets appropriately so that we're not over-investing across each platform in those markets. I think when you bring all those things together, that's where this creates that differentiation, allows you to separate in those markets from our competition to drive, when you go to the store, Halloween candy purchases.
Nice. And Tylin, so Vinny mentioned that you've broken down how the algorithm works for him. Could you take us through a short version of that?
Sure. We think of it as a suite of algorithms when we reference AI because it's not just one thing. Like Benny mentioned, you have to figure out how much budget to allocate per zip code. You can do that by looking at the raw sale data, at the sell-through rate, at the population, and a few other things. After you have budgets allocated, you then have to look at media inventory avails to figure out how you can reach that budget appropriately. After that, you have to price the impressions to make sure that your CPMs are as efficient as possible. And finally, spikes happen in the media world. You see an influx of inventory come in, and you have to readjust. There's also a pacing algo that needs to go into play. So these 4 algorithms collectively work together with what's now a nice AI suite that we can leverage and optimize as soon as we get the data.
And one of the most important things on that last point is this year, as we're going into market, our Super Bowl is 3 weeks away. But there's this thing that's happening 6 days after. And there's a lot of ads being poured out there by markets, by small markets from the campaigns. So like we have to make sure we're taking in all these different signals to make sure, one, we're not driving up the value of every impression to be astronomical because of this, because there's an influx of media this year. So having the algorithm built out allows us to really take all that into account so we're not overextending during an election year, which is pretty much going to be one of the bigger, I would say, spending years across really smaller markets, which is where this thrives.
Yeah, I feel like bid optimization is undervalued, or I always think it's not that sexy, so I don't talk about it a lot, even to potential customers. But like, it's what controls the price,
Yep.
right? And what price is what controls your reach. So you have to, if you can get the best bids, the best price, but in the right categories, be willing to spend where you need it. Like,
And
it
the
makes
key there is
sense.
best, not lowest.
Right.
And I think
Yeah.
that's the separation, because the value exchange changes from cost per thousand to actually cost per really business outcome.
Yep.
Yeah,
Totally.
I like to think of it as a cost-value ratio. You don't necessarily want to buy the cheapest impression that you can get. You want to get the best bang for your buck for the value that you can get from each impression.
Absolutely. Great. Okay, we are now going to turn it over to HP's Smart Tank campaign. Awesome. So Scott, you were inspired by Vinny, but
Yes.
you did something different, right? Going back to brands have unique outcomes that they care about. You guys were focused on product awareness lift for your Tanks product.
Yes.
Tell me what inspired you to like hone in on product awareness, and why did you use AI as a solution to boost it?
Yeah, so it's an interesting situation for HP. We don't struggle with awareness broadly. I think everybody in this room knows that HP sells printers, probably, and if you don't, that's my fault. What they might not know is the future of printing, which may not always sound sexy or cool, but historically you've got cartridges that cost more than gold. You've got things that don't necessarily work when your kid has to print out a presentation 5 minutes before they go to school. So there's a new breed of printers, the Tank printer. It's basically a vast reservoir. You don't have to replace your ink ever. Not a lot of people know about this. HP has huge historical share in the print category for both consumer and commercial. But we were a late mover when it came to the Tank category. We were beat by a competitor who starts with the letter E. I don't want to name drop them here. And they were all over the place with ads featuring Shaq, and their awareness was huge, and their share of that particular piece of the category was outsized based on the rest of their share for broader print. So we needed to go get our fair share. So we wanted to be targeted in a certain way with a specific product, but go after people who would already recognize HP. We have a campaign that spoke to how HP is the most trusted brand in printing for the last 25 years or so. And we needed to hone in on what that right audience is. We don't have unlimited budgets, right? In a world where everybody is challenged from a balance sheet standpoint, we had to make the most of every impression that we served. We're going after premium CTV channels, right? Hulu, Paramount Plus, Roku, not cheap always compared to some of the other stuff you can buy. But to your point, we don't want to just drive to the bottom. We want to find out what matters the most to actually drive the awareness of the new product for HP.
Yeah, that's amazing. I also think the creative was so great. Talking about trust, everyone in my team keeps talking about the moment in the ad where it's like, would you trust gas station sushi,
Yeah.
right? Like really hit. And for me, it's always like we could build like the best tech, AI models, whatever, but if the creative doesn't have an impact, it's not going to drive up awareness, right? It's not going to I think we saw like 5 points of awareness lift, but
Yes.
also 5 points of favorability.
Yes.
Okay, amazing. Tylin, can you tell us a bit about why, for brand marketers in particular, sort of these off-the-shelf platform algorithms or now AI doesn't really fit?
For brand marketers in particular, it goes back to what Vinny was saying, where the platform algorithms drive to online activity, and that can be very biased. But for brand marketers, we found that a lot of the platforms will bias towards activity for people who are already aware, and that's not what you want to target. We want to target the movable middle, the new customers or potential customers who could be influenced by your ads. So custom algorithms can rewrite the platform algorithm and target who actually matters to your brand.
Yeah, and that's all trained on third-party data. Chalice never measures itself. So our house partner on this is Lucid, right? They give us the data, and then what happens is as we consume more and more statistically significant data, that lift in that chart, right, you see just goes up and up and up as we find more pockets of lift, and the algorithm puts more ads there. All right. Okay, so we're now at the announcement part of the thing, and I have to find my announcement card. Okay, so we at Chalice have been we're 4 years old. Some would say that's a startup or an early stage company. Feels like maybe it is. We've been in the AI space for 4 years, mostly focused on what's called custom bidding algorithms and programmatic media. And that has given us a head start on a lot of the other AI companies you're seeing today. It has made us find very valuable models we can use for advertisers. But it's also required special integrations and APIs. And so today we're really excited to announce that we have taken that custom algorithm concept and turned it into what we're calling platform independent models. So a platform independent model is essentially what Vinny shared with you today, right? The brand owns the model, and then that model goes into any platform and takes over the decisioning of that platform. So now the decisioning is unified across Meta, YouTube, and The Trade Desk in the case of Hershey's. We believe platform-independent models will be an industry standard. We're just the first to do it. With that, we've launched two really cool products. The first is curation technology that decisions at the page level and rewards quality and drives outcomes. So you can read more about it in Advertising Week, or Ad Week, sorry, keep the Ad Week, Advertising Week. You can read more about that in Ad Week. I'm gonna ask Tylynn a bit more about it. But the idea is page level curation that is custom for a brand's campaign is completely new. Second is we have found a way to wrap the power of custom algorithms into what we're calling AI audiences that are now available in any of the platforms you see here today. So we're able to now kind of wrap these into PMPs and audiences that now any brand could activate with the touch of a button. All right, so Vinny, I wanted to ask you, you were the first, you inspired us. You came to us and was like, could you do this on Meta and YouTube? And we were literally like, can we do that? I don't think we can.
Yes,
Startup mode, we were like, we have 3 weeks to figure this out. Yeah, we will do it.
We'll get to it.
And it went pretty
did.
well. There was some manual intervention to build it, but now it's like
More
a
seamless,
fully built product that we're announcing at Adweek.
Yeah.
So tell me, like, what inspired you to think, like, I need this across different platforms? And what have you found since you've done it?
I mean, one of the big things too, when you think about all the platforms, when you're trying to speak to different markets, you have to set up thousands of line items, thousands of trafficking units, thousands of different man hours that go behind all of this. That was one of our first solves, in my opinion, that like really limited and created more efficiencies both on people, their time spent, the inefficiencies of having to set up every single zip code by a line item is crazy. So to me, that first layer was a huge win getting to that point. I know there was some manual processes on the back end, but the ability to actually do that, then to say, okay, I'll cross all three, because those are 3 separate budgets for my media plan. How do I make budgetary decisions that are fluid across all 3? In theory, you'd have to pause a campaign, pull it out, move it over, get a new IO done. This allowed us to kind of keep that fluidity that's really on top of it. Those 2 things to me are just really creating more more efficiencies in how we work. The output, though, of that obviously has become more seamless. We're obviously doing something today. It's actually going live with a very big retailer that I will not name at this stage, but having their data be fed directly to you versus us taking it within an Excel sheet and feeding it back. So like there's gonna keep building these more efficiencies how we do this. So we've learned a lot. I think it's really, we're just scratching the surface because we're only doing this seasonally. It's only on some of our big temples. We spend a lot more every day. And how do we start thinking about inventory curation for us only that we can then bid on ourselves and bring our own flavor to the algorithm that Tylynn talks about. So there's a lot we can do with this, and I think we're just getting started.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. As the COO. Okay. I have to report the numbers. Okay. Tylynn, okay. You're going to do like 1,000 times better of a job of explaining what are the differentiators of our new Curate product and how how the tech works inside of it.
Sure. So for differentiation, we hit on the most important one here, platform-independent models. You're not tied down to training a model per platform. It can live anywhere you want, essentially with the click of a button. Another differentiation is that you can access inventory outside of the core DSP platform. If you're curating something, there's much more inventory that you can scale into. And finally, it's much more granular. With these models now, you can get down to the exact page level URL. So that takes you from action on something like yahoo.com, not knowing where you're going to show up, to actioning on Yahoo News, the exact article that may be impactful for your brand, or something like sports content if you'd like to get your ads in front of somebody before a football game. But we can apply the state-of-the-art LLM models to all of this to run through and see the correlations between the web page text, the images, everything on there, and really fine-tune everything that we have to optimize the data for the brand in the most efficient way possible. And most importantly, it's simple. There's not API calls going back and forth. There's not multiple teams setting up integrations on multiple platforms. It's applied with the deal ID, and we find many more efficiencies that way.
Nice. Okay. We're like early stage company, so I run finance and marketing at Chalice, and like I remember the team's like page level bidding. I'm like, really, what's the deal with page level bidding? Why is it so important? And our advisors in the front row, Lou Pascalis, was like, page level bidding. I think being able to decision with that granularity creates a ton of value. Simply what we're learning is partnering with Sincera, we can bid on the quality of the page. We can see on this page, this is the ad load compared to the content. This is how many ads are refreshing on the page. Like that means a lot in terms of how much we want to bid on it and value it. So Vinny, Scott, Tylin, thank you so much for being here, sharing your strategy.